العالم يتغير وبسرعة، ونحن نتابع وبدقة نحاول الوصول إلى الحقيقة من مصدرها مباشرة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
President Mr. Mohamed continues his visit for the second day, where he visited the pharmaceutical production of Saidal here in Algiers. President Abdelmajid Tebboune has decided to grant pardon to author Boualam Sansal in response to the request of the President of Germany, a friendly country, Mr. Frank-Walter Steinmeier. The A3+ group at the UN Security Council, including Algeria, has called for strengthening the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, in financial and technical terms. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm your host, Mas'ud Sharfi. The President of Somalia, Mr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, has paid a visit to the pharmaceutical production unit of the Saidal Group here in Algiers as part of his official visit to Algeria. The Somali President visited the unit producing solid drugs used to treat chronic illnesses and the packaging section of medicines used to treat cancer. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, together with the President of Somalia, Mr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, agreed to strengthen cooperation and commitment to building bridges and exchanging views on issues of common concern. Following their meeting as part of Somalia's President's state visit to Algeria, President Tebboune said they discussed opportunities for cooperation in the fields of energy, agriculture, fisheries, pharmaceutical industry, and higher education. He added that they are working to expand their cooperation in higher education by offering additional scholarships to Somali in vocational training, police, and defense fields.
زيارة تجسد الإرادة المشتركة لتعزيز العلاقات وتعبر عن حرصنا على مد جسور التعاون وتبادل وجهات النظر حول القضايا التي تهم بلدينا الشقيقين. لقد تطرقنا في هذا اللقاء إلى فرص التعاون في مجالات الطاقة والزراعة والصيد البحري والصناعة الصيدلانية والتعليم العالي. وفي هذا المجال أسجل بأننا أنجزنا خطوة ستكرس إرادتنا المشتركة لاستغلال الفرص المتاحة لتكثيف وتوسيع التعاون، حيث ستستقبل الجزائر 110 طالب من صومال الشقيقة مستفيدا من هذا التكوين في الموسم الجامعي 2025 و2026. ونحن بصدد تعزيز هذه الخطوة بمنح منح أخرى في مجال التكوين المهني والشرطي والجيش الدفاع وفي كل ما ترغب فيه جمهورية الصومال الشقيقة.
The Algerian president added that he tackled with his Somali counterpart the importance of performing a common African stance in the issue facing the continent, notably the situation in Libya, emphasizing the importance of finding a political solution led by Libyans themselves, away from any kind of foreign interference. They also addressed the situation in the Sahel and Saharan region, as well as Sudan, expressing their rejection of foreign interference in Sudan and describing it as immoral and unethical acts that will lead to terrible consequences on the Sudanese brothers. They also discussed the latest development in Palestine, reiterating their support for the Palestinian cause and people to achieve their freedom and independence within the 1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital.
تحدثنا بطبيعة الحال عن القضية الفلسطينية وجددنا دعمنا للشعب الفلسطيني من أجل نيل حريته واستقلاله. وبطبيعة الحال تطرقنا إلى الأوضاع في ليبيا وأكدنا معا على أهمية الحل السياسي الليبي الجامع خلال انتخابات حرة تفضي إلى بناء مؤسسات شرعية وتحافظ على وحدة ليبيا وسيادة شعبها الشقيق على أرضه ووضع حد للتدخلات الأجنبية في شؤونه. كما تطرقنا باستفاضة إلى مستجدات في منطقة الساحل والصحراء وفي السودان، وبخصوص هذا البلد الشقيق السودان الذي يشهد مأساة إنسانية حقيقية ويعاني من التدخل السافر لتأجيج الفتنة. عبرنا عن رفض تلك التدخلات الوخيمة العواقب والتي ما فتئت تمعن في الإضرار بهذا البلد الشقيق.
For his part, the president of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, praised Algeria's role in promoting peace, justice, and African and Arab solidarity. He added that the talks were an opportunity to reiterate leaders' ongoing commitment to building a partnership based on mutual respect, stressing that talks focused on key areas of cooperation, including trade, investment, education, defense, security, agriculture, and human capacity building. The two leaders also agreed to strengthen regional stability and promoting economic integration while contributing to the achievements of the objectives of the African Union's 2063 agenda. He also expressed his constant and principled support for the Palestinian people in their legitimate struggle to establish their independent state within the 1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received a request from his German counterpart to grant pardon to Boualem Sansal and release him from prison to receive treatment in Germany. In accordance with Article 91, Paragraph 8 of the Constitution, and after the legally mandated consultation, the President of the Republic decided to grant pardon to Boualem Sansal following the request of Germany. The German state will cover the costs of Mr. Sansal's transfer and medical treatment. The Minister Delegate to the Ministers of National Defense, Chief of Staff to the People's National Army, Army General Said Shingriha, has received the Minister of Defense and Veterans Affairs of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Opa Kashiri, who is on a working visit to Algeria at the head of an important military delegation. In a statement, Mr. Shingriha said that both Algeria and Zimbabwe share strong historical relations, notably by supporting independence movements in Africa against colonization. He said both countries share military cooperation relations based on mutual respect, coordination, and a common stance regarding African issues. He added that cooperation was strengthened with the official visit to the President of Zimbabwe last July to Algiers, as it allowed the exchange of views and coordination on international issues of common interest. For her part, Zimbabwe's Defense Minister praised the special relation between the two countries, highlighting that they tackle the security challenges facing Africa and exchange views on issues of common concern. In Sudan, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, has warned of a dramatic increase in the number of population displacement in Al-Fasher, capital of North Darfur, fallen at the end of October in the hands of the Rapid Support Forces. More details with Mr. Said Bouhazi.
In 2 weeks, nearly 90,000 residents have fled the bombings and the fighting on roads where hunger, thirst, and a lack of care kill almost as much as weapons. IOM Director General Amy Pope, on a visit to Sudan, said that the crisis in Al-Fasher is the direct result of nearly 18 months of siege who have deprived families of food, water, and medical care. In the city taken by the Rapid Support Forces after more than 500 days of siege, tens of thousands of civilians remain trapped. They are surviving in famine-like conditions, deplored Mrs. Pope, while hospitals, markets, and water systems have been destroyed. Her agency reports alarming abuses perpetrated by the Rapid Support Forces, including arbitrary detentions, looting, physical assaults, and sexist violence. In Tawila, a city located some 50 kilometers from El-Fasher, which was already home to 650,000 displaced before the escalation of the last few days, the wounded do not stop to flock. Despite immense needs, humanitarian operations are collapsing. The warehouses are almost empty, aid convoys blocked by insecurity and access restrictions. Pope warned that without safe access and urgent funding, humanitarian operations are at risk of shutting down just when communities are in the greatest need for help.
And still in Sudan, UN Women has condemned violence perpetrated against Sudanese women in the El Fasher region, capital of Darfur State, by the Rapid Support Forces, which is in conflict with the government army, stating that rape is being used deliberately and systematically against them. More details with Mr. Jamal Silmani.
The organization's regional director for East and Southern Africa, Anna Mutafati, said that they received reports of atrocities, including summary executions and sexual violence, and that there is growing evidence that rape is being used deliberately and systematically.
So for more than 2 years in a row, every front line in Sudan is cut through the bodies, the homes, the livelihoods and futures of women and girls who have endured the sharpest edge of Sudan's horrific conflict. UN Women's latest gender alert, entitled Gender Dimensions of Food Insecurity in Sudan, indicates that nearly 11 million women and girls are now acutely food insecure. As fighting has engulfed El Fasher and severe food insecurity spread across Darfur, women and girls have experienced extreme hunger, displacement, death, sexual and gender-based violence.
She also added that women have testified to suffering from hunger, forced displacement, rape and bombing in Al Fasher, the epicenter of the latest disaster in Sudan.
The crisis is worsening dramatically as fighting expands around El Fasher. Thousands of women and girls have fled to Tawila, to Koma and Malit, where humanitarian presence is very scarce. What the women tell us is that on their horrific journey, they report that every step that they have taken to fetch water, to collect firewood, or to stand in a food line has carried a high risk of sexual violence. There is mounting evidence that rape is being deliberately and systematically used as a weapon of war. Women's bodies, ladies and gentlemen, have just become a crime scene in Sudan. There are no safe spaces that are left, nowhere for women to gather safely, to seek protection, or even access even the most basic psychosocial care. Basic dignity has also collapsed.
Famine had been officially declared in the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification IPC in Al Fasher and Kadugli. As of November 2025, some 73% of women had extremely poor diets and heightened malnutrition risks.
And now to South Sudan. The A3+ group at the UN Security Council, including Algeria, Somalia, Sierra Leone and Guyana, has called in New York for the strengthening of the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, in financial and technical terms, inviting the international community to become more involved in resolving the conflict that is undermining the country. More details with Asia Bakar.
The permanent representative of Sierra Leone, Mr. Mikhail Imran Kanu, speaking on behalf of the A3+ group, warned that reducing the UN mission in South Sudan operations threatens peace in South Sudan and urged action to address its funding crisis, noting that budget cuts could weaken the mission's capacity.
South Sudan needs sustained technical and logistical support to help navigate the difficult political and security situation in the country. Scaling down the operational presence of UNMISS will put the prospect of durable peace in South Sudan in jeopardy. The A3+ joins the call from the Secretary General in urging the international community to address UNMISS funding crisis to sustain peacekeeping efforts, which are essential for the country's stability. The A3+ is profoundly alarmed by the difficult financial situation of UN peacekeeping operations, including UNMISS, and its 15% reduction in expenditure, which will necessitate the repatriation of approximately 25% of uniformed personnel and equipment, significantly affecting the mission's operations. The budget cuts are expected to negatively impact UNMISS's ability to operate, including potential closures of some bases and a reduction in personnel.
He said that South Sudan is at a crucial turning point, either toward unity and development or renewed violence, and stressed that the UN mission in South Sudan's continued presence is vital to sustain peace and prevent conflict.
We believe that South Sudan stands at the cusp of a turning point, one that may usher in a moment of national unity and sustainable development, or a relapse in another cycle of violence, derailing a carefully crafted peace agreement and power-sharing measures that allow for peaceful coexistence. The continued presence of UNMISS remains critical to the facilitation of peaceful engagement and to averting further violence.
The 8-Week Plus particularly emphasized the priority of funding humanitarian aid for the people of South Sudan. In this regard, they called on the international community to further support humanitarian efforts in the country, urging the government of South Sudan to facilitate the entry of humanitarian assistance and to protect the personnel responsible for delivering aid to the population. On another note, the 8-Week Plus expressed themselves as deeply concerned about the political and security challenges facing the country, a situation worsened by regional instability and in particular by the ongoing conflict in neighboring Sudan. The group also called for the strict implementation of the 2018 peace agreement relating to South Sudan, while encouraging the concrete activation of the hybrid court provided for in that agreement to prosecute war crimes. In this context, the 8-Week Plus called for former Vice President Riek Machar and other accused persons to receive a fair trial, while also encouraging all parties in South Sudan to prioritize the people and the country and to peacefully overcome all challenges facing the implementation of the peace agreement.
And now to Palestine. The Palestinian National Council, Rawahi Fatouh, has condemned the Zionist entity's intention to impose the death penalty on Palestinian prisoners, describing it as a political, legal and humanitarian crime, as well as an official legislation for organized state murder and terrorism. In a statement reported by the Wafa news agency, Mr. Fatouh warned that introducing the death penalty would escalate the occupation's daily crimes, including genocide and ethnic cleansing, with settlers and the army committing murder and torture under government supervision. In this context, Hamas representative in Algeria, Youssef Hamdan, condemned the Zionist government's actions as a criminal and called the international community to impose sanctions, investigate prisoners, and hold its perpetrators accountable for crimes against humanity.
This approval is a confirmation of the nature of this criminal Zionist government in an attempt to legitimize the organized mass killing against our people and our prisoners in the occupation's prisons. We believe that passing this fascist and sadist legislation is an insistence on violating international laws and conventions. The international community, the United Nations, and all human rights organizations are required not only to condemn this dangerous, racist, and colonial legislation, but also to impose deterrent sanctions on the rogue Zionist entity and pressure it to withdraw it. We call for the formation of international investigative committees to visit the occupation's prisons and examine the conditions of our prisoners who are subjected to torture and abuse that have led to the death of dozens of detainees. The occupation continues to commit these crimes because it feels safe from punishment, accountability and prosecution before. Therefore, all relevant parties must pursue the occupation's criminals and hold them accountable for their crimes against humanity.
UNICEF has said 2,400 children in Gaza have already been reached with multiple vaccines on the first day of its ongoing catch-up immunization, nutrition and health campaign aimed at protecting children who missed routine vaccines during 2 years of Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. UNICEF spokesperson Ricardo Piers told journalists in Geneva that the campaign carried out with the WHO and partners targets over 40,000 children under 3 and will be conducted in 3 rounds.
UNICEF, WHO, and partners have launched a catch-up immunization, nutrition, and health campaign to reach over 40,000 children under 3 who have missed routine vaccines due to 2 years of war and conflict. On the first day of the campaign, we managed to reach over 2,400 children with multiple vaccines. The campaign will be conducted in 3 rounds, with round 1 taking place from 9th of November on Sunday. It kicked off until the 18th of November. We hope to roll out round 2 and 3 over December and January. We have procured 1 million vaccines and got them across and into Gaza to protect children against deadly but preventable diseases such as polio, measles, and pneumonia, along with nutrition screenings and treatment for malnourished children.
He said that UNICEF continues to face major restrictions, adding that auto-disabled Syringenes and solar-powered refrigerators remain blocked or awaiting clearance, as they are deemed dual-use by the occupation authorities.
The biggest problem yet that UNICEF is trying to tackle right now is to get syringes and solar-powered refrigerators into Gaza that were procured months ago. We have bought 1.6 million syringes. The vast majority are still outside Gaza. The auto-disabled syringes and other critical supplies have been blocked or are awaiting custom clearance since August 2025. Both the syringes and the solar direct drive refrigerators are considered dual use by Israel. And these items are, we're finding very hard to get them through clearances and inspections, and yet they are urgent. Many of our services rely on the consistent flow of supplies, including for this vaccination campaign.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to our series of portraits depicting Algerian figures, writers, poets, or artists who marked history. Today we take you into the world of famous painter Mohamed Siakhem, who is one of the founders of the Algerian modern painting. He was also press caricaturist and designer of movie sets, notably for La Voix or The Way of Slim Riyad or Poussière de Juillet or Dust of July, directed and produced for the Algerian television with his lifelong partner, writer, poet and playwright Katib Yassine, who nicknamed him Eye of the Lynx. His friendship with Katib Yassine, who he met in Paris in the 50s, translated into the artistic work of each of them with poems and illustrated texts or paintings with handwritten poems such as the painting Siakhem Eye of the Lynx, 30 Years of a Painter's Hell, which was later published by the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs here in Algiers in a brochure to pay tribute to Siakhem. Siakhem was born in a village in the central province of Tizi Ouzou here in Algiers in 1928. In 1931, his family moved to Rilizane, where he spent most of his childhood. In 1943, while aged 16, he handled a stolen grenade from a French military camp, which exploded. 2 sisters and a nephew of his died. Hospitalized for 2 years, he lost his left arm, and after this tragedy, his flesh and soul remained deeply marked, and his artistic works bear the marks of this pain. Between 1947 and 1951, he was a student at the Society of Fine Arts of Algiers, before joining the School of Fine Arts of Algiers and following the courses of miniaturist Omar Racine. Between 1953 and 1958, he attended the School of Fine Arts of Paris. And in 1958, Isiakhim left France to Germany and then to East Germany, where he had been established until the Algerian independence. In 1962, Isiakhim returned to Algeria, where he was the cartoonist of the daily Alger Républicain. And in 1963, he was one of the founding members of the National Union of Plastic Arts. From 1964 to 1966, he was head of painting workshop at the School of Fine Arts in Algiers, counting among his pupils many famous world artists like Xena Milicevic, French painter, architect, and town planner. He then became director at the École des Beaux-Arts of Oran, and from 1965 to 1982, he created models of the Algerian banknotes as well as many Algerian stamps. He traveled to Vietnam in 1972 and in 1973 received a gold medal at the International Fair of Algiers for his work on the stand of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. From 1973 to 1978, Isiakhim returned to caricatures, and in 1977 he ran the realization of a fresco at the Algiers airport. Speaking about the hard times Isiakhim went through, Katib Yassin says in his own words that he saw the painter destroy a painting in supreme effort to express his creative tension, as if all his work was the big grenade which never exploded in his hands. That's how Katib Yassin described his friend. Very influenced by the strong personality of his mother, but also by the cruel relation he had with his mother after the incident, Mohamed Isiakhim's work was naturally centered on a portrait, most of the time a dark one, of the Algerian women. And for his part, the biographer of Katib Yassin and Mohamed Isiakhim, namely Ben Amar Median, art historian and lifelong companion of these two creative geniuses, forged in the tragedy, compare the painter to Vincent van Gogh, two instinctive creators, deeply marked by sorrow and pain, who he says will find an outlet in the important number of dark self-portraits devoid of aesthetic artifice the two artists realized. In 1980, Mohamed Isiakhim receives in Rome the first Golden Lion, a UNESCO prize for African art, before dying on the 1st of December 1985, after a long illness, leaving behind him a rich heritage. This rich heritage can be seen today at the Museum of Fine Arts of Algiers, in addition to the paintings owned by art lovers and the painter's relatives. The exhibition devoted to Isiakhim in 2010 at the Museum of Modern Art, known as MAMA, to commemorate the 25th anniversary of his death, drew no more, no less than 30,000 visitors who came to discover the rich works of late painter Isiakhim. Today, his style that inspired the movement Auchem at his debuts in women's portraits remains easily recognizable in the mural paintings and decorations, very present nowadays in plastic art teaching and the works of many Algerian plastic artists. Well, with this, we come to the end of our program for today. From me as a guest here and producer Mohamed Yousfi, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
The Algerian radio is with you round the clock. In your car with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and on your smartphone or tablet through our innovative app. Enjoy continuous listening wherever you are. Download the My Algerian Radio app and stay tuned. The Algerian Radio, the closest voice to you.
استمعوا إلينا لنقل المعلومات من مصادرها الرسمية.